My name is Annie Haas, and I'm going to do a little series about woodworking and why it is important to, and why you might want to include some woodworking into your curriculum when you can. And I want to first start off by saying you don't need to be an expert in woodworking. You don't have to outsource and find a woodworker in your area, and you don't have to do online, although there's a lot of great online woodworking classes, I would assume. I'm not sure, but if you just want to do things on your own, I'm going to kind of empower you that you can do things on your own, and it's not impossible. Okay, so the first thing you might be thinking about, and most moms would be thinking about, is safety. So I just wanted to touch on that first, because that's always a concern with whittling, especially if you start at age 4 or 5. They can whittle. So I wanted to share that the knife that we started using, and that I would recommend start using when young, is the this little knife made in Sweden. I'm not really exactly sure how to pronounce it, but I will put this in the notes of the video, and it looks just like this. And it comes with a little sheath. And what you can do is take, when they first start carving, is you can take an electrical tape, a little bit of electrical tape, and put it on for the tip. And then they would only be carving with this middle part here, and they would be carving away from themselves. So I also made a little safety sheet for young children when I taught a woodworking class here, and I keep it in our space taped up. I have a little woodworking area over here, a little shelf where I keep all of our woodworking stuff down there, and then I keep example wood carving pieces up there, and I keep the safety sheet here, and this is a free download on my website, and it kind of shows, you know, which way you need to carve and where the blood triangle is, and it just gives a visual so that everybody can remember to stay safe. If that is a really big concern, don't let that be a barrier to woodworking, because they're going to be supervised the whole time. They can sit on a bench, and you know, you're there, you're supervising. You're probably, if they're very young, not carving yourself. You're just watching them carve and making sure that that they understand. Probably having a whole sort of talk with them the very first time about safety is important. So, you know, if I had a group of 4 or 5-year-olds, and you might want to, you know, judge based on, is this child ready, based on an individual child basis. But if I had a small class of young ones, you know, safety would probably be the very first class, and we'd go over that, and we'd make sure it was really important. You might even want to make up or find a story of characters and safety, so that they really have safety in the mind, and it's really absorbed, and they know how they're supposed to do it, and they can copy you, and so you show them the motions so that they know that they can be safe. So for the beginning, you're just going to want to take a fresh stick, and the reason why want a fresh stick is because green wood is easier to carve. So you need to get a stick from outside that is fresh off a tree, that's not really old or hasn't dried out and still has a bit of green wood to it. You might not see green on it, but you'll feel that it's easy to carve. And just have the child carve the end of the stick to a point. And really that's just like the basic first wood carving with children thing to do. Not where you're carving anything specific, but where you're just whittling a branch. And once they've done that for a while, you know, a week or two, you know, if you do it once a week, we do woodworking Wednesdays, so we do woodworking only on Wednesdays. Maybe for a couple of Wednesdays, you just carve branches. And when they're young, you don't want to get too complicated. You want to keep it simple. You can carve this to a point, and then it's a gnome hat, and then you can cut it off, and it's a little gnome with a hat, And that's just like one of the easiest things that they can carve when they want to make a certain something. Usually they're just satisfied with, wow, they're just really into the experience when they're young that they're carving. And then you teach them to put away their tools, and you keep those tools up high, and they have to ask to take them down, and use them when you're in your supervised wood carving time and not by themselves. So that is something that, I mean, children can do carved wooden figures. I'll show you. This is a book called Toy Making with Children, and it's by Freya Jafka. And here are some wooden, you know, they don't have any faces, they're very basic, but when they can begin to, after they're doing their gnome hat thing, they could begin to make little figures, and you might need to help them with some of this. And sometimes you can leave the bark on for a coat or anything like that. So keeping it really, really simple at first, especially for the youngest children, and not doing anything overly complicated until they get a bit older. But if yours happens to take off and wants more complicated things, you can just gradually move them up to more and more complicated things. Another thing about safety, since this first video is just mainly about safety, is you can also get carving gloves. Sometimes you may want to use both. Sometimes they don't feel comfortable using both. You don't have to use them. The children don't. But I find it's good, especially maybe not for the hand you're holding the knife with, but for, you know, the one you're holding the thing with, in case you get a nick or whatever. There are carving gloves that are really inexpensive, and I will put a link to these as well as the knife. And they could wear goggles so they don't get, you know, a fleck of wood in their eyes. And you can also, you know, when you get into sanding, then they can wear, you know, a mask or something to prevent that from going in. So those are all the safety things, and it's up to you, the parent, what you feel comfortable with your child doing. Consider your child's temperament. If they're really, you know, a rowdy type, you know, or they're just playful, and, you know, you want to make sure that they really know the safety rules beforehand. But if you have a more mellow child, if you have a child that's scared of the knife, you might need to work in the opposite direction of, like, you know, calming them down, letting them know it's okay, going really slow, you know, wrapping the end with the electrical tape, letting them know it's okay. So you do have to work with the specific children and their temperament, and see if they're, you know, how they're going to respond to wood carving, you know. So you don't want them to be too uncareful, but you also don't want them to be scared of wood carving, and just kind of get them comfortable with it to where it's a natural thing that they're doing. And it takes time. It's not going to happen, you know, the first day might be a little like, okay, you know, we did this for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and now it's, you know, we're going to take a break and we're going to go do something else, and we'll come back to this in a week or tomorrow. So introducing it to young children is going to be like that, and it's going to take getting used to. Some will dive in, and some might be a little, you know, they might not like it. They might think it's uncomfortable or awkward, and that's okay. But you just kind of keep trying. This is our woodworking time. Make it really pleasant, make it really nice, and say, you know, have a story with it, so that, you know, if they have a story, they can see that other children have done that, and then it makes them more comfortable, and like, oh wow, okay, this is something children do. And so that's kind of how to introduce it to the young child. And I'm going to do another video kind of progressing up through the grades, and give some more book suggestions and tool suggestions in the next video.